So this is our green brain, and a few of the things it does really well are show you some of the arteries, but also really define the lobes for you. So this is your cerebrum, and then you've got your cerebellum right here. On the cerebrum, this beige region is the frontal lobe. Think about the frontal bone. The yellow region here is the temporal lobe, which is going to sit behind that temporal bone. Here we've got the parietal region, and then there's our occipital lobe. Now, if I show everything to you from the inferior aspect here, we can see there's the pons, kind of a walnut looking structure. There's the medulla oblongata, so part of that stem coming down. And notice you get a really nice view here of the cerebral arterial circle. So that's our cerebral arterial circle. Right here is the internal carotid. So that's going up into the brain right there. Then we get our basilar artery right here, and it's going to split, move down that vertebral column as the vertebral arteries. I'm not going to go over the cranial nerves on this model because they're not as good here. We will do that on a different model. But I do want to point out to you, this pink structure is meant to represent the pituitary gland. So let's go inside the brain now. We'll start with this piece that doesn't come apart. So right in here, remember our ventricles are spaces within the brain through which cerebrospinal fluid is going to flow. So we have right here, this space is going to be a lateral ventricle. This space in here, which is much smaller, is the third ventricle. And then we're going to flow down our cerebral aqueduct, this little canal right here, to the fourth ventricle. And notice too, you can see the pons in cross section here, and you can also see the medulla oblongata. Now looking at some other structures here, we've got, this is called the fornix. Think of the fornix like the floor of the lateral ventricle. And then up here we have the corpus callosum. You can think of that like the ceiling. So C for ceiling and corpus callosum, F for fornix and floor. Now this structure that on some of the models looks a bit like an egg with a yolk, this is the thalamus. Anterior to that we have the hypothalamus. And then posterior to that, we have the epithalamus. The little yolk part of this egg is going to be the interthalamic adhesion. And some of the other structures are not shown as well on this model, so I will show some of the other internal structures on another model. Let me switch to the one that comes apart. We're going to take a little trip into the lateral ventricle, so I'm going to take off the top part right here. In the back of this lateral ventricle space, this is the caudate nucleus. And then on the other side, we've got the insula. So just note that those are different, but nicely textured difference so that you guys can tell that difference. This one also shows a little better the pineal body. That is going to be, actually that's this brown part. Sorry about that. This is the pineal body. The pink up here is going to be a choroid plexus. Now this one actually shows some of those other structures a little bit better. So here is the anterior commissure. Remember, this is the anterior part of the brain over here. Here's the posterior commissure, this little 638 right here. Now below it, we've got a couple of different little bulbs. We've got the superior colliculus and the inferior colliculus. So quick note, colliculi is plural, colliculus is singular. So superior and inferior colliculi. And then we have this really nice tree-like structure in our cerebellum, which I don't think is on your list, but it's still pretty cool looking. This is called the arbor vitae, or tree of life. So if I turn it over, it looks like a tree. And that is our green brain.